Whoa, hey, hold on. I didn't mean... I wasn't trying to hurt you.
You did! You hurt me every time you didn't show up!
She's lying. My stepmother is lying about the robbery. The courtroom froze. Every head turned toward the trembling 8-year-old girl standing on the witness stand. Her voice cracked, but her eyes burned with truth. The woman she called Mom sat just feet away, silent, pale, exposed. Cameras clicked. Gasps rippled through the crowd. No one could believe what they had just heard. But this wasn't just a child's outburst. It was the moment an entire town's prejudice was put on trial. This is The Girl Who exposed her stepmother's lie. Where are you watching from? Comment your city below. The courtroom was colder than usual that morning. Sunlight filtered through narrow windows, painting sharp lines across the polished floor. 8-year-old Amira Johnson sat quietly at the edge of the long wooden bench, her small legs swinging above the ground, her hands clutching the hem of her yellow dress. She had worn it because her late mother used to say yellow made her glow, made her feel safe. But nothing about today felt safe. Just weeks earlier, life in their modest suburban home had been simple. Amira lived with her father, Marcus, a hard-working delivery driver, and her stepmother, Claire, a woman who smiled too easily, but whose eyes never softened when they met Amira's. Every morning, Amira helped her dad pack lunch before school, humming old gospel tunes her mom had taught her. Their days were quiet, filled with laughter, cartoons, and bedtime stories, until the night everything changed. The Johnsons' home had been broken into, or so Claire claimed. Jewelry missing, money gone. And when the police arrived, Claire pointed trembling fingers not at a stranger, but at Marcus's co-worker, a young black man who had once visited their home to drop off work papers. The accusation spread fast, turning neighbors' whispers into poison. Amira didn't understand why everyone looked at her father differently after that, or why the police kept coming back. She only knew something was wrong. Deep down, she felt it in her chest, the unease that crawled in whenever Claire smiled too sweetly. Now, sitting in court, the air heavy with judgment, Amira's world felt like it was tilting. The adults around her whispered about evidence, witnesses, and testimonies. None of it made sense. All she knew was that Claire was lying. But who would believe an 8-year-old girl over her stepmother's tears? And yet, as her name was called to the stand, Amira's heart steadied. She wasn't just scared, she was ready. Because the truth, no matter how small her voice, deserved to be heard. The courtroom seemed too large for someone so small. As Amira climbed the wooden steps to the witness stand, her shoes echoed through the silence. Every eye was on her, some filled with pity, others with quiet disbelief. Her father's gaze, heavy with worry, met hers for only a second before shifting back to the floor. He trusted her. He always had. But even he didn't know the secret she had carried since the night of the so-called robbery. That night, Amira had been half awake when she heard the front door creak open. She'd peeked through the banister, her tiny fingers gripping the wood. Claire was in the living room, her movements hurried and tense. Amira watched as her stepmother opened a small black pouch, pulling out the very jewelry she later claimed had been stolen. Then Claire hid it in the attic vent, wiping her hands as if erasing the truth. Amira hadn't understood why, only that she shouldn't have seen it. The next morning, Claire's shrieks had filled the house. "We've been robbed!" she cried, clutching her pearls, except the pearls weren't missing. The police arrived within minutes. Claire pointed to Marcus's friend, Jerome, who had been at their home just days earlier. "He knew where I kept my valuables," she said. The tone of her voice, soft but firm, carried weight. And in a town where suspicion always fell on black men first, no one questioned her. Amira remembered how her father had begged the officers to reconsider, how his voice cracked as he said, "Jerome's not like that." But the handcuffs clicked anyway, loud and final. That sound had stayed with her for days. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood's warmth turned cold. Whispers followed Marcus wherever he went, at the grocery store, at work, even in church. "Maybe he knew," they said. "Maybe the apple doesn't fall far from the tree." The words cut deep, not just for Marcus, but for Amira, too. She watched Claire play the role of the grieving wife perfectly. Tears in public, silence at home. At night, Amira heard her on the phone, her tone shifting from pity to panic. "They can't find out," she whispered once, her voice trembling. "He'll never forgive me." Amira didn't fully understand everything, but she knew one thing. Claire wasn't just lying, she was hiding something bigger. When the court date arrived, Amira wanted to tell her father what she'd seen. But every time she tried, Claire appeared in the doorway, her smile tight, her words sharp. "You don't want to make things worse, do you?" Those words echoed in Amira's mind as she took her oath in court. Her palms were sweaty. Her throat is dry. The lawyer asked gentle questions at first, about where she lived, about her stepmother. But when the topic shifted to the night of the robbery, Claire's eyes narrowed. "Amira," the lawyer said softly, "did you see or hear anything unusual that night?" The room went silent. Amira's heart thudded against her ribs. She remembered Claire's warning. She remembered her father's tired eyes. She looked at Claire and saw not fear but control. "That was enough. I saw her," Amira said quietly. "She's lying about the robbery." A collective gasp filled the room. Claire's face drained of color. The judge leaned forward. For the first time, the truth had been spoken aloud, and nothing would ever be the same again. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Papers shuffled, whispers turned into shouts, and the judge's gavel pounded for silence. But nothing could silence the truth now. It was out there, echoing in every corner of the room. Amira's words had pierced through the web of lies like sunlight breaking through a storm. Claire's composure cracked. Her trembling hands clutched the armrest as her lawyer whispered frantically in her ear. But her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, were fixed on Amira. For the first time, there was fear in them. "Order! Order in the court!" the judge thundered. Yet even his voice couldn't mask the disbelief rippling through the crowd. The prosecutor leaned forward. "Miss Johnson," he said gently, "can you tell us what you saw that night?" Amira swallowed hard. Her small voice trembled, but it didn't falter. "She took the jewelry," she said, pointing toward Claire. "She hid it in the attic vent." "I saw her do it." The courtroom froze. Every gaze turned toward Claire, who sat motionless, her breath shallow. Officers rushed to the Johnsons' home within the hour. When they returned, the evidence was undeniable. The jewelry, the missing cash, even the fake police report Claire had filed. Marcus broke down as the truth unfolded. Years of quiet endurance, of carrying suspicion he didn't deserve, spilled out in tears, and Amira, standing beside him, felt something she hadn't in weeks. Safety. Justice had finally spoken through the smallest voice in the room. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments! The days after the trial felt like waking from a long, dark dream. Claire was taken away in handcuffs, her lies finally exposed. The neighborhood that had once turned cold toward Marcus now met him with uneasy smiles and quiet apologies. But some damage couldn't be undone. The trust, the dignity stripped away by a single accusation. Those wounds ran deep. For Amira, life slowly returned to something resembling normal. Her father found new work, and together they began to rebuild what had been broken. Yet, beneath the laughter and small joys, the memory of that courtroom lingered. She had spoken the truth, but it shouldn't have taken a child's courage to make the world listen. In school, Amira learned about heroes and justice. But now she understood that sometimes heroes are just ordinary people who refuse to stay silent. Her father often said, "The truth doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be heard." Those words became her strength. The story spread far beyond their town. Reporters called it a victory for truth, a reminder of how easily prejudice can twist justice. But for Marcus and Amira, it was more personal. It was the story of how racism had tried to destroy their peace, and how love, truth, and courage fought back. Because in the end, the most powerful voices aren't always the loudest. They're the ones brave enough to speak when everyone else is afraid to listen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories that matter.